Good, good morning, people. Trinity College, Dublin. Dublin here. We're going to be going over the Dublin's research. Let's do it. So,
3A2.
There's something called strut and tie, guys. Strut and tie. Strut. Okay, these are struts. Think of your car tire, strut, and a tie. Tie, strut, and strut. Okay. Well, this becomes a nodal area, doesn't it? Nodal area. I mean, that's how you got to connect them. Nodals will be how you connect them. They can be plates, they could be welds, they could be bolts. They could be some other fancy joint, as in a dresser drawer type thing. Dovetail joinery, etc. You know, open your mind to see the strut and ties everywhere. Your mouth works on a hinge. Here's your jaw. And how does it close? There's nothing pulling it here. It does it by contraction of muscles. Back in this location. And get your choppers closing. Strut and tie systems. This one just is a mechanical advantage right here in the back of your mouth. Wait for that another time, perhaps. But I have more. You know, I like dropping little dimes and then come back later, little jemmies. So let's go to this video here. Now,
steel beam experiment.
I've done this one, you know, I don't know, over a year ago, and I never made it to a video to you. So let's see how we'll go today.
In this laboratory session, we'll observe and measure the response of a steel beam to loading in both the elastic and...
So I've seen this video, I don't know, probably 50 times. So here's number one. This will be sensor 2, sensor 3, and sensor 4. This is just tape holding the wire, tape holding the wire, tape holding the wire, so you don't pull away the sensors, which is one there, one here, and then it's the underside of this. So remember, I did a video some time ago. I said, guys, tell me why there's an extra plate at the bottom of that steel. What would be the intent of it? And it increases your deflection ability. Now let's watch. And here's your top plate, your top flange, and then there's your webbing. All right, it's just 3 pieces of steel that's just welded together. All right, this could be rolled formed. So sometimes they do some crazy stuff, but this is not roll formed. Okay, roll form, machined, pressed. How about that?
Elastic ranges. The beam is simply supported and will be subjected to a single point load at midspan.
Support he's talking about here.
The dimensions of the beam, as well as the required geometric properties, are as follows.
Load. See, it says load.
The beam will be gradually loaded in increments of 5 kilonewtons via the hydraulic test rig until failure occurs. The response of the beam in terms of displacement and strain will be measured and recorded with the System 7000 data acquisition system.
I'll stop it. We'll just let him do his narration so I don't...
Displacement at midspan will be measured using a linear variable displacement transducer, or LVDT.
All right, so then this one will tell how much it's deflecting. Okay, we'll push down. The load comes down the cylinder. There's a round contact point there. Is very specific about that. As far as, you know, contact point, not a big square.
Strain will be measured.
As you can see, oh, great.
When beams get...
Yeah, so now I'm not sure where I left off. But I want you to show that number 2, yeah, I think I messed up. I think I have to do this for you again. Maybe I'm duplicating it so you guys can put up with it if you sing it twice. So that's why I wish he was doing, hey, that's the load, right? And this is 1/4. This is 1/4. And over here is our quarters. So this is a 1/4 section. This is a 1/4 section. I wish he had more transducers to the right. But this 1/4, this is where we're seeing a load right now, is here. And here's our load. These two loads are matching up. As he loads it, it doesn't show at number 3. It doesn't show at number 1. It doesn't show at number 4. It shows at number, from this point, these two tie into each other. I know I might be doing this twice. If I am, put up with it. And you get to see how I try to when I redo my retake. So these two are the first ones to indicate, which makes sense, I stated a minute ago when I thought I was recording, because this section here is behaving as 1. As it loads here, it's shooting down from, I guess I should have been more like that. It's making this is more rigid. This whole piece here has become rigid, and it's doing here. Reason why I wish you had another transducer, because I like to see if it's like this. Let's mirror that. Okay, should have been here. Oops. Let's mirror that. So it'll be here. This is what I've liked to have seen. And now you're looking at it. It looks pretty much symmetrical, our strut and tie system again. Now, with that said, what will pop off next? Will it be number 4 next? Or will it push to number 1? And it would be 1 over here also. 1 would be here, if that was 1. And that would be 1. Will 4 be next on the list? And right now, I have to pause the video, and because this thing jumps so fast, I catch hell trying to catch the next one that pops off. So, is number 4 going to be next, right? Question to you guys. Think about it. I'm going to pause and play. So, just, so you see number 2 again is now taking the next step. It's up to 4. So remember where number 2 is. So it's probably symmetrical here and here, right? And the loading's here. So this will this be next, or will it first start distorting above the number 1? What do you guys think? Pause it and think about it. Yeah, it's so difficult. It's just so difficult. As you can see, number 1 is very low. So you can see that it's so difficult to try to capture that. I don't even recall if I captured it. Tell you to be honest, I did this video so long ago with the other channel. So this is your number 2 and number 4. Remember, it looks like this. This is your. Yeah, I screwed that up. Let's try again. Neutral axis. Number 2. Let's think of that as number 2. Here's number 3. This is number 4. Number 4 is at 6 now. Number 2 is at 7. So 2, let's put a mirrored one over there. 2 is it's still acting like in that capacity, but now we look at number 1. Number 1 would be here also, above 2. It's kind of out of the zone a little bit. It's the lowest of them all. Number 4 now, number 3 and number 3 is right here, number 3. And number 3 is here. 3's got a value of a 4. 3 has a value of, let's do this one. So looking profile, this is number 4. Number 1 has a value of 1. So let's do 1, 1. Number 2 has a value of 7. So let's put 7 here and 7 here. And interesting, number 4 also has a value pretty high now of 6. They're almost in line, the sensors. They're almost in line with the numbers. So now this whole, and we're at, which is loading, 18 kilonewtons, I think, 0.57 kilonewtons. We're at the, so your tie has this loading stress on it. It's about equal all the way across. In the middle of all places, it's not as stressed as the two outer quarters. And again, I want you to think again of your concrete now. For people that look at this, overlay this with the concrete samples. I've got thousands of this stuff that I've watched. All right, so, and thousands of rewatches. Oh, and I'm always trying to see the behavior so I can see it differently. See it differently and not so raw with, oh, okay, I see it now. This is this way. It's deflection in the middle. As you see, it's not deflection in the middle first. That you're going to go per his own testing, which he doesn't even explain, that he doesn't say that. And you look at the numbers, you'll see that it's first stressed at the 1/4. 1/4 out first. 1/4 out first. That's why I wish he also had some further transducers further out. But using extrapolation above that 1/4, the numbers are low. It's only a 1. Let's go. Yeah, I got to delete this screen to minute to play.
Approximately 5.
Okay, so I go forward a little bit. We're looking at number 1. We've got 3s. We got number 2s at 11, and we have number 4. So remember where 2s and 4s are. 2 are the far ends, if you think of this thing as balance, and 4 is in the middle. So right now, you look at number 2. This is 11. And then 13's in the middle. Now, all of a sudden, your strut, your tie in the middle, has got to share the loads. It's being stretched from two sides now. I believe it's being pulled outwards, this direction, and this direction. And that puts us at the anchor point now. And now it's taking a value that's greater than so this one is now taking a value greater than the struts. The action here, pushing it down, and you can see it's got that symmetry going on, pushing it away. And as we look at number 1, our 1 is still above there. It's not part of it. So you're looking at an internal triangle, if you will, that you can't visualize, you can't see. You can visualize it now, hopefully. Let's use red. So this is what the loading is looking like. And the number 1, and put a 1 above here. And here's our value for 1, is the least stressed point of them all. It's the least yet at this point of his deflection, of his loading. These are values of 3s. So it's the least stressed. You can go there and tap on it and it'll probably still be not taut, you know, pretty nice sounding. The most taut part is right here, right now. This will be very tight. So if you were looking for a fracture at this point, you would look, well, 13 is the very most where you would think it would, you would see it. But it's because you have this equal loading out here. Taking the loading here and then pulling outwards, the difference being the 2. The values of 2. All right, so the deflection right now is 0.06 millimeters. You can pause that if you want, but I'm going to have to delete it to press play again. That I want to do it this way, rather. So you can see right here your truss system I talked about. So that would be like that. Oops, I guess that should be more like, yeah, what the hell. Let's go on, and maybe it'll give us a different view. Okay, the values are still moving in the right window. In the right window up there to the right, we see 3 is still, number 1s are still at 3. Number 2 is below there, is at 10. Number 4 is in the middle, right? Think of the strut and tie. It's at 12. it now reduced where number 3 then picked up. So the strut has made another strut in the strut. It's now looks like, so there's 3. It now looks like this. Let's put the loading here. I'm going to drive a line down the middle. So this is number 3. We can do better than that. Here's 3. And 3 has a value of 7. So this is 7. And as we look out at the 2s, well, I need another pen. It's failed me. The 2s have a value of 10. So here's our 10s. Okay. And the number 4, which is below the number 3, has a value of 12. So it transferred up a little bit, made a higher. See the higher? It now transferred and looks like this double strut and tie system going on, where more load is now being carried up further towards the neutral axis now. It's distributing based on the new behavior of this. Even though he's only still showing at 6 millimeters. The same 0.06 millimeters, showing the same there, but the value went up. The kilonewtons went up. Didn't it go up? Let's press play. But I want you to see the new profile now. Oh, so number 1 is at 3. So this is still not playing along. Number 3s are 3s. Number 1s, those number 1s are at 3. So this is 3. It's still not worried, but the stress between what? I want you to think about the concrete now. But the stress between number 1 right here and number 2, let's call that 2, and let's call this one 2. This is number 1. The stress between them are significantly different. This is a 10 value. This is a 3 value. So now you're going to get your shear plane break, because it's only receiving at 3, and this is where your spalling can happen now. If this was concrete, thinking of it as concrete stresses. Now, of course, the steel is going to behave differently than concrete. It's a different setup, but it's still going to be a strut and tie. But I'm trying to extrapolate for you to make it easy. This is not the same as concrete, all right? But the strut and tie failure is about the same. This is sort of like the preview to get you to the concrete. It's going to be different behavior because it's steel. But initially, it's going to try to act like the steel, real rigid. And then the numbers will, incidentally, they put the transducers differently on this concrete ones that I've found. So it's a symmetrical thing I have to try to figure out. But the spalling takes place there because you have a higher value, number 10, there at the bottom steel. And it's got buckling going on. It wants to buckle. You know, the loading on it is just on the steel. Wants to shatter the concrete above it. It's got to try to below it. It's trying to hold it. There's only 3 here, but this 3 here is what? Is it in compression? Is this transducer? Can it do a compressive force using Newton's thing? Everything's equal and opposite. So this is a 10. Is this really a transducer that he has set this way? Perhaps he should have put it on a diagonal to see if we can get diagonal transducers, and then 90 and in parallel, offset to that, another transducer like going in a pattern like this, and like that. So we can see if this value of 10, that's value of 12 rather. This value of 12 is also really here, even though it's only reading a 3. So number 1s are only reading a 3. Remember, the transducer is, the way they have it set up, it could be giving us a false answer. a false read. It's giving an exact reading as it sees it. But that transducer could be putting in compression, and it's not the same. It could be a different, depending on how he calibrated it, depends on how it's going to react. Will it show the same value for compression versus tension, the transducer, depending on how you reset it. So we see a path now. A transducer here would be nice, right? Transducers times 3. And ideally we would see these in compression, transduced in compression. And then down here, we would see the gradation of it going across that path. We would see a gradation of the transducers for switching from compression to switching over the T's, small T, then big T, more tension. So we would ideally see that, but I can't find this study, guys. So I'm just sharing with you my madness in my brain, and let's keep going. And now we see, if you look to the right there, the chart up to the right, number 1 is at 8 still. So it's still low. The 2 is below number 1. The 2 and the 4 are now, the 29's in the middle, right? The number 29, that's in the middle of the beam. So as you think about that again, so this is 29. Let's just profile without the numbers now, because you should be getting it now. Number 2 is 20. These are 20. And here's our load point. Let's go ahead and shape this. And this experiencing more stress now is being pushed out. All right, being pushed away, if you will, separated, elongated. So our transducer, about it with elongation, can read. This one is going to be elongating. It's reading the numbers of 29. I didn't see that transducer on the other side there. Which direction did he set it? Did he set it like this in line with this web? Or did he set it this direction? And now when it stretches, we can see the stretch value like that. That would be very interesting to know that one, but it's not for us to see in this video at all. So I want you to look at that again. So we're looking at the steel here. And there's your value of 29 in the middle. Outside are 20s. And then above the 20 is the number 1, and that's got a value of 8. The flip side of that, same thing. So it'll be 8, 29's in the middle, 20's here, and it already took care of number 3 is at 16. It's got a value of 16 in the middle. We're at deflection of 0.08 millimeters, 1.31 kilonewtons. I want you now to see that 16, monkey in the middle, is being stretched, right? But it's not being stretched this way. Not really. It's being probably more like this. But we would need transducers to see that. To prove that, we would need transducers in the line of where I'm doing here to see how it really goes. So in other words, you need to map the shit out of this, and extrapolation is too far for me, because I really want to know, is it doing this? Is the gradation like this? Or is it the strut and tie? Is it really gradating down this direction? We know now this is different behavior, though, because this is a value of 16. It's no longer an insignificant number. It's 16. And if I look at it this way, here's a 20 on the outside. There's a 29 here, and there's 20 here. Remember I talked about, and then there's the peak here. So there's the load. Are there now two different strut and tie behaviors going on here? Or is this now acting as one like that, a giant truss type system, and this being more like a plate, making the legs of it look like that? Is that what we're looking at now? More transducers would tell us. I cannot, with more transducers I can tell. So this is going to go fast. It's going to go fast because now we're at, from a 4s are at 48. Look at the scale to the right. This is going to change real fast. So 48, 48. The center is 26. Okay, let's do this. Let's load it. Let's do that. Let's look at number 3 is 26. Okay. Yeah. Let's start over. Let's just do that. Okay, number 2 is at 30. And this is number 2. Number 3 is at 26. Number 4 is at 48. Okay, so then we just do that real quickly. And the number 1s are at 12. So we got 12 out here and 12 out here. Let's go ahead and put a line like this. So again, we have our load here at the top. Are we looking at this, because 26 is taking up more? Does this become more of a rigid section there perhaps? And it's driving it down like a hammer. And then our number 26, well, no, because if it was doing that and it became more rigid, this number would not be increasing. It would be a larger distribution. It would be like something like this. It would be much larger. So we're going to keep it loading the way it is. That the profile of how I visualize this strut and tie. We're going to literally just use the profiling we have, 26, and I believe it looks something like this. That's your behavior. There's 26 there, and now we just move down this behavior like this. The loading of this became so more rigid behavior-wise. It looks like this, more like this. And we're still going to do this, but this section here. But this number went up in value. So we're moving this original one that's to this one. Now we're shifted over. This is a 30. If that's a 30, then out here might be a 25. And now we'll start profiling it here. And then we get our increased numbers here. Now let's make our system larger. So 25. And now we're getting our behaviors our numbers to start to graze up. So this gets larger here. This is high here. By default, it's going to be larger out here also, as this bottom steel has to hold it. To make this 30, has to hold it. It's anchoring and stressed off of that wheel, off of the roller to the left and the roller to the right. I know I spoke when I said that I have my hands in 2 different positions. Sorry about that. Don't want to confuse you. Roller to the left, roller to the right. So this is what it's starting to look like, and there's your 48 in the middle. Let's go ahead and go.
Sponsored beam.
I have it in slow motion so I can see the numbers. So now we've got kilonewtons of 2.62. We got 15 millimeters of deflection. If we look at the midspan there, using that gauge, the gauge is here, right? And that's what it's going further away. The gauge will, as it elongates, it gives us the millimeters. 0.15 millimeters. Our profile is changing now. We have an 18. We have a 41. We have a 41 here, and that would be a 41 over here also. Midspan between them, number 4, would be a 70. That makes sense, right? There's your 70 going up in numbers. So these numbers just shift down. Now here's your 35 perhaps. And here's your 35 over here as you shift this over. And here we go. And then at number 3, which is the midpoint, number 3 is a 39. Oh, look what's happening here. You see what's happening there? It's shifting up the stresses. Remember I talked about in concrete, it jumps from 1, it throttles its way up. Now I want you to see this profile of it. I knew where I was going with this, guys. I've seen this video so many times that I evaluated it, and now I want you to start seeing this as another internal stress. The same as the bottom down here, right? I want you now to see the profile above it. Of course, they're connecting, but I want you to see it. And up here is the least amount of, well, that's really compressed there. That one, you call it fibers. The fibers there are really compressed at that point. All right, so 39, and you're starting to see it now. You start, look at this, and I want you to see the internal. Now, these are connected, but they're connected because it's a plate, and they're spaced by the distance he chose. And that's your reading, your profile. All right, so as you can see that 39 now is taking on elongation. 39 is taking on the elongation from the opposing 18s on the outside. Same thing as it's down here, it's opposing here. Just extrapolate this out. All right, extrapolate out 35, move down a bit. This one increased. This puts more, of course, the number is going to be higher here if you had a strain gauge. So start profiling it out. Over here might be a 16. Over here, this one over here might be a 16. Remember, when the bottom steel breaks, this will be your path. When your bottom steel breaks, like in concrete, it will, when this falls off, that's what happens first. You're like, oh, the loading happens. It redirects the loading going, okay, where are we going next? Well, as it shows, it's on this one. This next becomes the weakest because this was primary. Once it goes, it's no longer primary. The new behavior is whatever the new concrete behaves like. And this is where we start talking about this is shear fractures. But let's go. I'm going to show you this crazy balance, though, that happens at one point. Is it right about here? Let's see. Number 2 and number 3 are at 55. There's a crazy balance that takes place at one point. So as we profile this again now, and I've profiled this so many times. All right. So number 2 is now 55. So 55. Remember, this is like 45 and 35. It goes out, keeps going out. So do that and do that. You can do it between each leg if you want. Okay. And number 3 is at the bottom. Number 4 is at the bottom, 96. It's really getting stressed. And then number 3 is in the middle there. That's 53. And number 2s are 55. Now you see what happened there? I think this is the reversal I was looking for. Let me see, number 3. I think there's a better reversal than that. I'm sorry. Let me back that up. I got my 2s wrong. It's a better reversal than this. That's the wrong. Number 1 is 25. Okay, 25. Remember we had an 18 before, I think it was, roughly. It doesn't matter. You can change your own numbers. You can see the profile. And then start putting this together like this. Okay, and the one below it. There's the shifting of it going up to the top. Ultimately, the fracture will happen where it can no longer, where it can take where the highest deflection is, that's not being able to resolve by its anchors being the outside one. This 96 needs the 55 to stay at 96. If you get a break at 55, at the 55 loading, let's just call these load values. So if you have this steel design where it can't take 55 right here by chance, well then it will fail here first. Even though 96 here is here, well, this is showing equilibrium. The steel is pretty behaving balanced, right? And my formula here. Also up here, number 3 is 53, yeah. But as you look, so there's your profiling. But they also are doing this. There's another strut, the strut and tie system, remember? And that's by default. trying to find a one that... There's number 4 going way up. There's number 1 at 31. 2 and 3 are married to each other. See how 2 and 3 are married? They just keep following each other. Number 2's underneath, right? 2's over here, 3's in the middle. They just keep balancing each other. And number 4 is 121. And these are 69s, right? These are 67 and 69. Think of the profile. But per his load sensors, let's see, number 269. This is what we're getting. And number 3 is 67, correct. So it looks like that. But remember, I'm profiling like this because I'm using number 2. I'm using the value from number 1, rather, to show that they're going up. As he loads this goes up. Number 1. Number 1 is at 31 now. Number 1 is at 31. See, still out of the zone. See, number 2 and 3? Taking an equilibrium, taking it equally. 2 and 3 are sharing the loads equally down in that strut design. Number 1, still.
Up until the onset.
Sorry, I'm letting it go. Okay, I'm just letting it play. So this is your number 1. So number 1 is at 37. We're going to profile this. We'll write it in, 37. So 37. Roller. Number 2 is at, these are 81s. The center line, number 4 is at 143. And number 3 is at 79. So let's do this. So we'll do that. That's the center line. And so this is what the strut and tie is starting to look like to me. And there's your stresses. And it's pretty local, even though you want to see it differently. It's still saying that there's, if you were to take a reading out here, which they did, it's saying that, you're getting 37. And then you could extrapolate, well, yeah, my stress is there at 37, but the bottom stress in my bottom flange is great. It's at 81. It's, double the numbers of the value of number 1s. And it's the center being the most stressed because it's being pulled out. We could go 1/4 over. This is 1/4. So that's a quarter. That's a quarter. That's 25 cents over here. And here's 25 cents here. And I moved my quarter. My 25 cents was... So my 25 cents is here. Oh, yeah. So then this one's got to go. That's $1.25. So that's too many quarters in my... I mean, I like to get $1.25 out of 4 quarters, but I can't do that. All right, so there's your profiling. Over here, we got a rotation going this way and this way. Counter rotations. Counter rotations. So is 37 really met? Countering, remember I said I'd get back to this. Is the 37 really being low values because it's counter met by that rotation? The counter force, the compression of this beam going in this direction. Because of the rotation like this. See, we got a deflection going on. We got millimeters. This is also pushing back. So our value may read 37. It may read 37, but I'm stating it's really probably an 81 because we have a counterforce of rotation inwards that needs to counter the 81. That there's a counterforce going on there. The numbers are being counterforced, and just because we can't find them, we don't see them on the reading, doesn't mean they're not there. It is being counterforced, counter-anchored. All right, this 143 is being 100% stopped by a 143. This is back to Newton's thing. I'd say Newton got a lot of things wrong. It's equilibrium. This is not an equilibrium as I look at it, these numbers. It was the professor that did this thinking that this should work, but the numbers aren't in equilibrium. But they are. It's just the readings are not in equilibrium because they're in the wrong location. They're not talking about the other stresses. So you would have to put another a transducer here across, just load these things up, all types of strain gauges to see how much what's really going on here, including down here. We've got the one strain gauge or measurement here saying in the center saying you moved this 0.26 millimeters, but it's not true. It's moved 2.6 millimeters there. But down here, it's moved a little bit more, and it put these fibers into compression as this beam tries to deflect inwards. So I'm stating the 37 is not a 37. It should be a higher value. There's some elongation in there, but there's a compression force in there that's balancing this 81, and these don't match. These aren't balancing. My law of equilibrium is just 100%. When it's out of equilibrium, it will break whatever's on the other side. Period. My heart valve is not closing and opening in equilibrium. I will have a heart attack. Right? I'll at least have heart issues. The valve is not closing fully. I'll get dizzy, lightheaded, blood vision problems. It's everything has got to be in equilibrium, but everything is always finding equilibrium. Right now, I'm working my way towards death, right? So my equilibrium is a machine that's working. It's wearing down piece by piece in a very slight trajectory to my death, which would be 100 plus years old. 100 years old for most people. I'll probably die whenever I die, but I want to do 150 just to break the record. Yes, it's going to be boring. I know everyone else around me would die. I get to watch them come and go, but I like competition. So competing on that even. I could care less if I don't make it because I'll be dead. But here we go.
Revealing the measured displacement increase linearly.
I want you to see the numbers again. Number 4 is, if we look over here, I'm not going to do a drawing yet again, but we look at these numbers. I want you to see that the 149 go up. At one point, this is going to have a torsion buckling issue, and we're going to call it a day. We're going to grab it at the torsion buckling.
To increase.
And to get that torsion buckling, I believe you would have to increase your number 1. Your number 1 value to the point where it's going to torque.
Applied force.
Okay, I gotta go.
Likewise,
There's 41, it's going up.
The strain values will increase.
All right, so number 2 and 3 is still paralleling each other, aren't you? That compressive moment is still inside there. This is number 2 under here, and number 3 is where you see it right there. It's still parallel. Right here, these guys are still loving each other. 2 and 3. And the value, of course, in the middle is going up more as being stressed out. This, of course, has more rotation on it. So we're looking at the number 1 value, though. We got 50 out here now. We're getting up there. And what will this fail under? Tension, or will it really fail under torsion buckling? You can pause the video and think about that.
In the elastic region.
Okay, looking at the numbers. Number 1, all I'm looking at is the numbers, guys. I'm looking for the break in the numbers here. The numbers break, the symmetry loss between 2 and 3. This tells me it's shifted from this strut to another position. We're at 66 here. When we get torsional and buckling, what's going to happen there? The middle is predictable, right? It keeps going up in value. But 2 and 3 is what I really want to look at, and when it transfers, no longer staying in equilibrium with each other, parallel. But it is in equilibrium because everything has equilibrium, as I said. Look at the values. 2 and 3 still locking in. 2 and 3 locked in. Look, paralleling each other. That's that strut I visualized. Looking at 2 and 3, 2 and 3. Yep, you're getting big elongation.
You will notice that the strain value on strain gauge 4 is approximately double that.
He says strain gauge number 4, the one in the middle, is double of strain gauge number what?
Out of strain gauge 3.
All right, on strain gauge 3. He's saying that the one above 3 and 4, that they correlate, that is double that of 3. I think he's missing that the 2 and 3 are parallel, that's the strut.
This because it is twice as far.
Okay, we're parallel on 2 and 3. Look at 2 and 3. I think when they break, that's when we get our torsion. 2 and 3 is parallel. See, 199s.
The same holds true for strain gauges 2 and 1.
And he's correlating 2 and 1. He's correlating 2 and 1, the ones that put above each other, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, instead of correlating 2 and 3. But let's watch. 2 and 3. Watch 2 and 3. It's still sharing. 2 and 3 is still sharing the loads equally.
Similarly, strain gauge 2 displays about half the value of strain gauge 4.
Strain gauge 2 is half the value of strain gauge 4, he says. So close. 2 and 3. Okay, now we got a break. Look what happened here. 2 and 3 just changed. 2 and 3 just changed to a significant amount of difference. 2 is now, it has a higher value. So let's draw this in. So 2 is at the bottom of number 1. So I'm going to put it over here. Here's 304. Number 1 is 119. Number 3 is 256. Okay. Number 4 is 466. And I'm going to profile this out here. Let me do some liberties by extending it. All right. Here's 119. 256. 304. What just happened here? 304. This means that number 2 just took on the primary load above 256, above number 3. So number 3 is now gone. It moved the neutral axis. If you had another strain gauge, you probably could move up higher, and find that the value would be equal again to 304. 304 is in there, but it's not there anymore. It's moved up, I think, up into the beam. So 304 would be higher. We have now a high number 304. Remember, this 304 probably profiles like that, the plane. And so now this is where we would get the spalling of rebar. I'm coming back to that. 119 is what we have at number 1. I will back just a touch. There is the balance at 116, 252, and 249. Right about there. See number 1 up there? That's 116 and number 1. And as soon as this thing transfers, 116 bounces by 3 digits. Let's watch it. That's number 1 now. The 4 is now
4.
Meaning it's, my belief is it's taking it higher up into the web now. The web now is getting too much and it can't stay without stiffeners. It's now it's taking the load and eventually it will twist.
It's because it is only...
And there you go again. You see the value number one? Number one there, looks at the chart to the right. Number one is 122. Number two, which is below there, is 312. And so 2 and 3 correlating each other is now no longer in symmetry. I believe that it went higher up in this beam now. So it went above the 3. It's up here now is where it plateaus. And it's up there where to get the equal, let's see, number 2. To get equal on number 12, 312, I believe is up here now, where I just pulled from. And below that, the one we had a strain gauge at, is you're actually reading a lower value, 263. And it just moved it up. So now we have this other strut in here that's behaving like that. All right, it's higher now. If you could push that up under the ceiling of this one, we now have a new behavior. And here's our 312 here, I believe. And number one is now, so profiling this web in here is now getting a higher torsion. At that point where they have the testing, the number one, it shows 122. And so we're doing this now. We're torquing, we're putting stress inside this. And we got 312 out here. 1, 2, so that would be 2. Yeah, 312. And in the center line, number 4, we're at 480. It's still being pulled, increased in number. So this bottom flange is still taking a value. It's still going up. It hasn't fractured. Still going up. You see it to the right? Number 4 is still going up. It's not fractured. All right. With the behavior of the bottom flange, would you expect number 2 or 3 to fracture? Correction. Would you expect number 2 to fracture? Well, no. The higher you expect it to not fracture because it's got to get at least to 500. This one took 500. It's not saying it's right there at the fracture point, but let's go.
Support and subject to
numbers that go up. Number 1 are doing numbers that go up and down. They're crisscrossing each other. So number 1, if you looked at this and slowed it down, it said 135. It said 137. It said 135. It's fluctuating in and out. I think that's critical. Now you're talking about a wave action going on inside this web. That it's already in torsion buckling now, because that's how you would get the different values. One time going down, the next thing it's plus, and then it's negative, and now it's plus again because it's twisting. It's torquing. So you're at your torsion buckling now. Per these numbers, using number 1, number 1 being the one that's in the web, it's starting to deflect in and out. Now, watch the numbers go up and down. Like that, I think that's how I would explain the value, the strain gauge. 139, 141, 142, 143, 144, still going up. 5, 6, 7, 8, 150, 2. Okay, 153. All of a sudden now it's no longer taking. It's number 1 is now balanced out. It's now able to take the load again with some stability. And that's why it's not going up in value. Now it's at the point, I believe, where it's being loaded, and it's just going to blow and give us a different value. See, it's stable at 153, even though the other numbers are going up. Yeah, there we go. Up and down, have a little deflection moment, a little torsion. See, the other numbers are going up, values are going up, but not number 1. There's number 2 going up in value. Increasing the loading. It's at its max deflection, I believe, right now we're looking at. Its max deflection with all its compression and non, it can't give any more. It cannot give any more. even though you can still load it, and you don't see the values going up as far as the strain gauges and all. It's now compressed and as tight as it can be as he still loads it until it finally goes into failure. Okay, there at 158. Now we got numbers moving. 150, 62, 61, 66, 67, 68, 9. It's now deflecting again. It's going up. I think we're there now. I think we're at that torsion. I think we're going into torsion. 81. Yep, I'm looking at the numbers, not recapturing. It's up to 89, 90. And he's loading. 91. 91, 92. It had looked like it had a secondary torsion stability, if you will. 3. Loading. Loading it. Okay. I'm looking at the numbers to the right. I'm not really looking at the gauges. Just numbers to the right. Loading. And up. 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. You see it on number 1. 96, 7. 8, 99, 200, going up again, stretching, 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 number 1 again, stretching, stretching, stretching. And we lost our, we're way up in height now. Remember how number 2 and 3 were balanced? They're way far from each other now. So I believe number 3, again, has moved the point further up into this. This gauge, that reading, is reading 3, but the symmetry of this is really up higher. So number 2 and 1, 2's down below it. It's just moved it up higher. 220, 230, I'm looking at number 1 again, gauge is there. 30, 30, it's holding, 31. Loading, loading. This is basically loading the numbers, just loading the weight. Loading weight, but not the, waiting for the torsion to happen. 233, 233, 4, 334, 330. It's going back, bouncing back and forth. It's trying to get a little more, remember, higher elevated now. Compression, torquing, compression and tension. Compression with torque values. 48, 49, 52, 53. All right, so stretching now again. Stretching, stretching, stretching. Let's see if it will recompress in a new position. It's moving up pretty high. 68. Now look at the numbers 2 and 3. They're off by about 100 now, 100 points. Loading. Number 4 is still transferring load out. See number 4 go up in value? Still transferring across that bottom flange. All right, so remember we got a different reaction. Let me pause it here and just look at the beam, how it's no longer flat. So this is that rotation, and so you're getting this counter force, this compression from this beam pushing back in here too. The pushing, confining, trapping the forces that are trying to blow it out. And now we're looking at, I want you to see this, and then I want you to see an upside down strut. Strut that works under compression and tension also. As that rotates around, I want you to see now this becomes a strut. It becomes a compressive strut. All right, I'm moving away from that. 272, 273, going up. 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 81, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Still going up. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. Still going up in value. Loading, and then we got that. You can see the multiple stages of equilibrium of this whole system, as I talked about with life. And here we go again. We're stable now at 9. Oh, just had a little movement on 3. And we're back moving on 1. Back to the flange. Back inside the flange. Up, 10, 11, 10, 11. It's getting compressed, re-stabilizing, if you will, re-equilibrium. And loading, loading, loading. It's able to take this load. This new number 2 took a little hit. No, 2 and 3, up, 2 and 3. I mean, number 2 just went up to 2 and then down to 3. Up, 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 up. They're getting close now. Up. Okay, he's going right to graph now. All right, but at least now we're going to graph. You can understand what we're looking at now. We're loading. And number 1 is still going up. Yep, everything's going up in value, so it's got some torsion going on, but it's it's in a deformed state, but it still can take loading. Okay, this loading, this exact loading. 348. This is in the web. Number 1 is in the web. 2 sides. Remember how you can see it. Visualize it. 49.50, we're playing around there. Okay, we're not going up it. We're not getting past 49 and 50 right now. 50, 49. Okay, we're flashing in 49 and 50. We're sort of stuck there. All right, so this is the web now taking on the loads. And oh, did I miss it? Number 2 is now fluctuating. Okay, looking back at
this point of the experiment, the increase in strain on gauge 4 accelerates when compared to the...
Now, look at number 2 and 3. They're now back on equilibrium almost. They're matching each other now. They're now, so the bucklings happen. They're no longer 2 and 3 are now becoming equilibrium again. Remember, they were far out a moment ago. Now they're getting close to equilibrium again. This thing is now going totally into failure mode. And then there's a reversal. As you look at number 3, now taking on more load. Number 2 can't do it. They're no longer marrying. Number 2 is actually reducing in its loading it can take. So, but number 4 is going way up. 55.14.
Local yielding is occurring.
Number 4. Now, can number 4 go up in value?
Beam, which is subject to large spending moment, and hence the higher strengths.
I would guess that if there was a load sensor above, that it would show a lot more.
The same will soon occur with strain gauge 3.
Number 4 is still going up, and now we have number 2 and number 3 way out of whack again. Number 3 is now taking the load. We've got a fracture in here that you can't visualize unless you do it like something like that. It's in there. This load is no longer. It's more in the flanges and not in the more in the flanges and not in the web.
More and more.
As you can see, look at the value there. The number 4 is at 63.95. That's all in that flange. The flange is doing most of the work now, the bottom flange.
Beam begins to yield, and MBF blast.
And it's way off. Look at number 2 and 3. The numbers are 900. Number 2 just, it's all the bottom flange now. Number 2 is really not doing its job at that location with that sensor. You got to move the sensors. You know what? I'm getting real irritated with this video. Come on. I want to do another one. It takes so much of my life to make these videos.
Local compression failure along the top flange.
Now there's number one.
Caused
Not moving at all.
test machine loading ram to rotate.
Bottom flange is doing all the work there. Come on,
This
show the torque.
brings about a perceived reduction in displacement as the side of the loading ram holding the LVD.
I'm going to have to speed this up.
However, this is not a real decrease in displacement. Displacement data from this point forward should be disregarded.
Using data from this point forward should be disregarded. But look at the numbers dropping. Number one. Number one's dropping. And back up. That's like just compression again.
Strain gauge 4 has now been overextended and torn.
Number four still
This results in an
off-scale.
off-scale reading on the
Couldn't
display.
read the scale anymore. Measure.
Local failure of the top flange then occurs. The test machine stops as the next force increment cannot be applied. This value.
Okay, the end of test. End of test is critical. Look at the values on this thing. Number 4 took the most. Number 3 was next on the gauge scale there. Number 1 and 2 and 3 are no longer in love with each other. Number 2 no longer was elongating. Number 2 was no longer elongating. It dropped down super low there. All right, there's number 8. This is the deformed state, and the profile of number 1 rather is at an 8. This is the deformed state of it. So it shows you that number 3 was the most deformed, which makes sense at the top strut. Number 2 was the next deformed. That was the underside, which makes sense. It's going out, it's stretching. And number 1 is the least deformed, and that's at that point deformed because we're looking at deformed state now. And number 1 is the web. Ending this video. I'm exhausted. Bye.